Jaya भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवतु नैष्ठिकी. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. So we are reading from Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 11, The Transcendental Qualities of Dhritarashtra, text number 19. Suresha Tasmana Hino Shivajram Suresha Tasmana Hino Shivajram Purastite Vairinimay Amogam Purastite Vairinimay Amogam Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram Shyam Nishpala Kripana Eva Yajna Shyam Nishpala Kripana Eva Yajna Suresha Kasmana Hino Shivajram Purastite Vairinimay Amogham Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram Shyam Nishpala Kripanate Vayachna
Suresha Kasmana Hino Shivajram
Suresha Kasmana Hino Shivajram
Purastite Vairinimay Amogham
Purastite Vairinimay Amogham
Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram
Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram
Shyam Nishpala Kripanate Vayachna
Shyam Nishpala Kripanate Vayachna
Suresha Kasmana Hino Shivajram
Suresha Kasmana Hino Shivajram
Purastite Vairinimay Amogham
Purastite Vairinimay Amogham
Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram
Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram
Shyam Nishpala Kripanate Vayachna
Shyam Nishpala Kripanate Vayachna Suresha Kasmana Hino Shivajram Purastite Vairinimay Amogham Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram Shyam Nishpala Kripanate Vayachna Suresha Kasmana Hino Shivajram Purastite Vairinimay Amogham Ma Samshayistana Gadeva Vajram Shyam Nishpala Kripanate Vayachna Suresha Kasmana Hino Shivajram Purastite Sura Isha,
Sura Isha,
O King of the demigods,
O King of the demigods,
Kasmat,
Kasmat,
why,
not,
Hinoshi,
you heard, Vajram,
the thunderbolt, Purastite, standing in front, Vairini, your enemy, Mai, at me, Amogham, which is infallible, then back to the thunderbolt, Ma, do not, Samshayista, doubt, not, Gada Iva, like the club, Vajraha, thunderbolt, Sya, maybe, Nishpada, with no result, Kripana, from a miserly person, Artha, for money, Iva, like, Yachna, a request. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O King of the demigods, since I, your enemy, am standing before you, why don't you hurl your thunderbolt at me? Although your attack upon me with a club was certainly useless, like a request of money from a miser, the thunderbolt you carry will not be useless. You need have no doubt about this. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When King Indra threw his club at Vritrasura caught it in his left hand and retaliated by using it to strike the head of Indra's elephant. Thus Indra's attack was a disastrous failure. Indeed, elephant was injured and thrown back 14 yards. Therefore, even though Indra stood with a thunderbolt to hurl against Vritrasura, he was doubtful, thinking that the thunderbolt might also fail. Vritrasura, however, being a Vaishnava, assured Indra that the thunderbolt would not fail, for Vritrasura knew that it had been prepared in accordance with the instructions of Lord Vishnu. Although Indra had doubts because he could not understand that Lord Vishnu's order never fails, Vritrasura understood Lord Vishnu's purpose. Vritrasura was eager to be killed by the thunderbolt manufactured according to Lord Vishnu's instructions because he was sure that he would thus return home back to Godhead. He was simply waiting for the opportunity of the thunderbolts being released. In effect, therefore, Vritrasura told Indra, if you want to kill me, since I am your enemy, take this opportunity, kill me. You will gain victory and I shall go back to Godhead. Your deed will be equally beneficial for both of us. Do it immediately. Wow, what a bold statement from Vritrasura. Kill me. I'm standing in front of you and you can use your thunderbolt. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Shankarati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Vishatamvitamscha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girenya Kripatamaham Vande Paramadhavam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has the form of Satchitananda Vigraha. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Him who turned the dumb into eloquent speakers and enabled the lame to cross mountains. Such is the mercy of the Supreme Lord. He Krishna Karuna Sandhu Dina Bandhu Dirakpate Gope Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindhavaneshwari Vrishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarobhascha Krupa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasami Gaurabhaktarindra Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. O King of the demigods, since I, your enemy, am standing before you, why don't you hurl your thunderbolt at me? Although your attack upon me with your club was certainly useless, like a request of money from a miser, the thunderbolt you carry will not be useless. You have no doubts about this. So when King Indra threw his club at Vritrasura, Vritrasura caught it in his left hand and retaliated by using it to strike the head of Indra's elephant. Then these are the set of verses 6.11.9 to 12, which talks about this aspect. Seeing Vritrasura's disposition, Indra, the king of heaven, became intolerant and threw at him one of his great clubs, which are extremely difficult to contract. However, as the club flew toward him, Vritrasura easily caught it with his left hand. 10. O King Parikshit, the powerful Vritrasura, the enemy of King Indra, angrily struck the head of Indra's elephant with that club, making a tumultuous sound on the battlefield. For this heroic deed, the soldiers on both sides glorified him. 11. Struck with the club by Vritrasura like a mountain struck by a thunderbolt, the elephant Airavata, feeling great pain and spitting blood from its broken mouth, was pushed back 14 yards. In great distress, the elephant fell with Indra on its back. So one can imagine the force with which Vritrasura would have struck the Airavata elephant, because Airavata elephant is not an ordinary elephant. It's an elephant which has come from the
spiritual world.
not exactly spiritual world. From where do we get Airavata? Yeah, there are two pastimes. One pastime says that it has come from churning of the milk ocean. So therefore, there are many items came from by churning milk ocean, and one of them happens to be Airavata, and that was taken by Indra as his carrier. But if you search through the websites, you also find an interesting pastime where King Indra approaches Lord Brahma asking for a carrier. He's a king and he needs a carrier. And when he approaches Brahma, Brahma sends him back and he says that you come the next day. And Brahma prays to Garuda to give him an egg. And that hatched egg, and then Lord Brahma chants a mantra, and out of that egg comes Airavata. So next day Indra comes and picks up an Airavata and is considered to be a very powerful animal. Bhagavatam says that it has 4 tusks. Normally we say that 2 tusks, but Airavata has 4 tusks. But elsewhere some websites say that it has got 7 trunks. I'm not sure how far that is true, but it says there are 7 trunks and it's pure white. It had so much of power and strength that it would draw water from underworld and then spray into the clouds, and that's how I believe the rain comes. So this is one of the pastimes which is said in the website. So what we can take is that Airavata is not an ordinary elephant, but it's an extremely powerful elephant, and such an elephant, when it was struck by the power of Vritrasura, it was pushed back 14 yards. And of course, we know that Indra, being a yogi, he touches the elephant's head, and then the elephant recovers back from the agony of pain, and then it starts functioning as its normal strength and force. So we find that in this pastime, a comparison is being made between pure devotional service and mixed devotion. Normally, if a philosophy is given to us, it becomes difficult for us to digest, or it becomes difficult for us to understand. But the same philosophy, if it is given through an interesting pastime or a story, then it's easy for us to understand. So we find that in this pastime, it took place eons back, long back ago. We can see how the difference in consciousness of two personalities, one a pure devotee and the other is a mixed devotee. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while instructing Rupa Goswami, he talks about the pure devotional service. And what is that verse which is spoken regarding the pure devotional service? Yeah, Anya Abhilashita Sonya Jnana Karpadi Mahaprabham Anukulyena Krishna Anasiranam Uttama. So therefore Bhakti Uttama. The pure devotional service is Anya Abhilashita, no other desire. But here we find that Indra has a desire. And the desire is to retain his kingdom and to rule. And this is very normal for an ordinary person, in the sense that, or a conditioned soul, because we become attached to something that gives us pleasure. You can think about it. What gives us pleasure, we become attached to it. It could be a car, it could be a property, it could be family members, it could be anything, a bank balance, whatever we are attached, whatever gives us pleasure, sensual pleasure, we become attached to it. And once we become attached to it, we drift in our consciousness from the pure state to the lower modes of material nature. And that's what we can see in the case of Indra. He is attached to his throne because that gives him pleasure, and because of that, he drifts in his consciousness. And the result of that drift in his consciousness is that he loses confidence in using the thunderbolt. He had used earlier what was the instrument he has used earlier? The club. Having used the club, and he found that the club did not give him the required result, and now he was hesitating to use the thunderbolt. Although the thunderbolt was prepared under the direct instruction of Lord Vishnu, and it will give the required result, but somehow he lost the confidence in using the thunderbolt. Why? Because his consciousness has drifted lower. He was no longer able to maintain the high platform, and he is thinking that he is the doer. He was not thinking as an instrument, but he was thinking as a doer. And which is the verse in Bhagavad Gita which talks about the doership? Yeah, 3.27. Prakrute kriyamanani gune karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So he is thinking that he is the doer, and because of the doership, he has lost confidence in the thunderbolt. Whereas Dhritarashtra was not on that platform. He was on the pure spiritual platform. And he knew that the thunderbolt was prepared directly under the instruction of Lord Vishnu. And it will not fail. And he knows the purpose of Lord Vishnu. Now that's the difference between a person conditioned to a person in pure devotional service. Person in pure devotional service, even in turbulence times, he understands the hand behind the situation. And this we find repeatedly appearing in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Can you think of an incident in Bhagavatam where the instruction was given to the king that said that, well, it is the time factor, so therefore do not think that you are the causal factor for this war. And later on, the instruction takes further up or further deeper, saying that, well, it is difficult to understand the consciousness of the Lord, or the what Lord unfolds a particular aspect of the pastime. Anyone remember which is the pastime? Where this instruction was given? To whom was it given? When Yudhishthira Maharaj, he laments, he is thinking that it was because of him so many millions were killed in the Kurukshetra war. And therefore, even though Lord Krishna and others, Vyasadeva, everyone gives him the instruction that lamentation does not disappear from his heart. And then Krishna takes Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas to Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev initially gives so many instructions, and then finally he says, do not think that you are the cause, it is a time factor. And time is not different from the Lord, and ultimately says it is difficult to understand Lord's mind. No one can understand Lord's mind, including devatas like Brahma, or even the exalted personality like Lord Shiva. They cannot understand the Lord. So do not think that it is because of you that the soldiers were killed on the battlefield. And this is the quality of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu, and that quality is called Dhira. And because of that quality, we do not understand Lord's pastimes till the pastime is over. For us, this pastime took place millions and millions of years back, and therefore when we read now, we understand this pastime. But at that time, on the battlefield, when Dhritarashtra was fighting, or Indra and Dhritarashtra were fighting, they did not know what was in the mind of the Lord. It's only the pure devotee like Dhritarashtra could understand that there is a reason why the thunderbolt was created. But Indra lost that confidence because his consciousness dropped. And because of that drop in consciousness from the higher mode to the lower mode, he entered into the platform of being a doership. And in that mode, he felt maybe this may not work. And therefore, if this doesn't work, that's the ultimate weapon he had in his hand to kill Dhritarashtra, and if that fails, then what happens? We lose the battle. Now, typically, in a doership, what are the factors which are covered or which are given by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita. And anyone remember what the set of verses which talks about the worship?
The five causes of action.
Yeah, 5 positive factors. And which verse talks about that? Or which chapter talks about that? 18th chapter. Verses from 14 to 16 talks about the 5 factors. What are the 5 factors?
Senses.
Sorry?
The senses.
See, sense here, senses. Okay. The senses,
The body.
the body,
Endeavor.
the endeavor,
Soul.
the soul,
And super soul.
and the super soul. So in a doership, there are the 5 factors. So out of these 5 factors, it's only one of them happens to be ours. This is the soul. So the other 4 factors they do not belong to us. If we can understand this part or this aspect, that in any action there are 5 factors. Out of these 5 factors, only one factor is ours. The other 4 factors, they belong to Supreme Lord. Then we should not become attached to the result of the activity. Because in achieving the result, there are 5 factors. Out of 5 factors, 20% is our contribution, 80% belongs to the Lord. And therefore, that 80% should be given back to the Lord. We should not be using for ourselves. And Rupa Goswami, out of his kindness, says we should give only 50%. So therefore, being liberal, we think that how can I give 50% back to the Lord? But when you look at the 5 factors, we find that our contribution is only 20%. So we are entitled only at best 20%, not the total 100%. But we think that, well, I have done the activity and therefore I become attached to the entire result. And once we become attached to the result, then that forms the bondage, that's the binding to the material world. And therefore we fall into this chakra, punarapi janana, punarapi marana. So that is the cycle into which we enter into. But this is rejected by Śrīmad Bhāgavatam in the beginning of the first chapter itself. Which is that verse that talks about that? Sorry?
Discusses about what?
That rejects this aspect in the because this says Kaitavatam, this is called the cheating religion. It is rejected. In the beginning of the first canto, very second verse, it is rejecting this as dharma projita kaitavatro parama nirmacharanam satam. It says that completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart, desire for any of those things. So therefore, we find here that we look at the person and we try to identify, well, this person may be pure devotee or this person may not be pure devotee. But what matters is the consciousness of the person. Look at Vritrasura. Vritrasura is born in a demonic family. And even if you look at his external appearance, it is so fearsome. But look at his consciousness. It is so pure. So therefore, it's a lesson for us to understand that the externals should not be taken into consideration while looking at a person or a personality. We tend to look at externals and say, well, oh, maybe he's a pure devotee. No, he may not be a devotee. So if you look at Vritrasura, external appearance, you will run away from such a person. But look at his internal consciousness. He says, why are you worried that the thunderbolt is not going to work? It will work, and do not hesitate to throw at me. It will kill me. And that way, your desire will be fulfilled. And this is what we find, we hear throughout Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Now, why we say that the dharma, artha, kama, moksha is to be rejected? Why Śrīmad Bhāgavatam reject that and talks about pure devotee service? Because this contamination has led to people think that, if you look at, I think, searching the website, it says that in Bombay, anyone coming from Bombay here? Okay. So, you find that on the boards, billboards, I believe, that cricket is our religion. And Tendulkar is our God. So you can imagine the dilution that takes place in the heart of the Vedic land, where the Vedic scriptures have come. They've forgotten what the Vedic scriptures are saying. They have brought down to the material concept that cricket is our religion. So therefore they spend their entire life in watching cricket, and to them, when Tendulkar holds them back, he is the Lord. He is the God. Do you play cricket? No. Watch it. So therefore, we should know what is pure devotional service, and this is what we find in this pastime. And there is an interesting dialogue that is given by Krishna Chakravarti Thakur. I read the purport from on 6/11/19. Just as you desire to live and enjoy the happiness of Swarga, I desire to die and serve the lotus feet of the Lord in Vaikuntha. See, you can see what Dhritarashtra's mind is. Just as you desire to live and enjoy the happiness of Swarga, I desire to die and serve the lotus feet of the Lord in Vaikuntha. Both your desire and my desire should be fulfilled. So both of us desire should be fulfilled. Now this is the interesting part of the Lord's pastime. Whenever He does His pastime, more than one aspect is solved. Why do you delay in killing me? That is expressed in this verse. When will you become the target of the thunderbolt? I am right in front of you now with no opposition, so you can use your thunderbolt. But throwing the thunderbolt at your big body may also be fruitless. So this is Indra's disposition. Why? Because he is thinking that he is the doer. He is not thinking that he is an instrument in the hands of the Supreme Lord. Simply carry out the order of the Supreme Lord and leave the result. But he is thinking that I am the doer. What if I release the thunderbolt and it does not get me the result, then I am a failure. I will have to run away from the battlefield possibly. The thunderbolt is never without result. Why? Because it's amogham. The thunderbolt is going to give the result. What will I do if the thunderbolt ends up in your hands like my club and is used to attack me? So you have just earlier you have used my club and then you attack my animal, and this time if I throw the thunderbolt and equally you hold the thunderbolt with your left hand or the right hand and then you hit me back. Dhritarashtra says, do not have doubt. The thunderbolt will not be without effect. It will not be like requesting something from a miser. So do not be worried. It will do So that's a confidence which Dhritarashtra had in the thunderbolt or in what Lord Vishnu's mind was, whereas Indra had a doubt. And we encounter the same doubt all through our life. Do we have so much of faith in Lord Vishnu? Even exalted personalities have this difficulty. But Srila Prabhupada translated this entire pastime and he has shown in his lifetime what the faith in the holy name and what the faith in the spiritual master can do. As we all know, Srila Prabhupada entered US with hardly $8 in his hand or in his pocket at the age of 70 years. He was in a similar situation like Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was all alone on the battlefield. He was hated by everyone. Can you imagine that we come to the temple, everyone hates us. No one likes us. Can we be on that environment and still fight? Dhritarashtra is hated by the devatas. They were all praying, they were all worshipping, they were performing yajnas. Somehow this guy should be killed. And including his own demonic soldiers also started hating him. Why? Because he was chastising them. Why are you running away from the battlefield like cowards? Initially the demons, they thought that, well, they themselves are very powerful. They had powerful weapons, and then they are being led by Dhritarashtra, and therefore they are going to be victorious in the battlefield. They use all their weapons, and they find that all their weapons have been neutralized by devatas. And when they found that all their weapons were neutralized, out of fear, they started running from the battlefield. And as they start running from the battlefield, Dhritarashtra chastised them. You are all cowards running from the battlefield. Here is an opportunity for you to participate and attain a glorious death. And by attaining this glorious death on the battlefield, you will attain higher planetary system. But on the contrary, you are running away from the battlefield. Therefore, Dhritarashtra was hated by his own soldiers, demonic soldiers. Devatas, as it is, were hating him. And then the sages also, they said, when will this guy die? So then no one liked him, and he was all alone on the battlefield and still willing to perform his prescribed duty. He knew he was going to die because that was the thunderbolt prepared under the instruction of Lord Vishnu from the bones of the deities. So therefore he knew that he was going to die, but yet he was willing to discharge his prescribed duty. His duty was to fight on the battlefield like a soldier and then leave the body. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada was on the battlefield of Maya. He was all alone. He went to US and then his godbrothers and others did not support him. He was fighting all alone with the Maya or with the energy thrown at him by Kali. But he had faith in his spiritual master. He had faith in the words of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that every village, every town will chant the holy name of the Lord. Similarly, Dhritarashtra had that faith in his spiritual master. Who was the spiritual master of Dhritarashtra? Who was the spiritual master of Dasa? when we take the journey, not in single lifetime, it's a journey from his previous life. In previous life, what was he? He was Chitraketu. And as a Chitraketu, Narada Muni was his spiritual master. So he had absolute faith in the instruction of Narada Muni. He was exhausted by the material energy. As Chitraketu, he had enjoyed and all the material opulences, but still something was missing in his life. And that missing was that he did not have a son. And for the sake of son, he did everything, and finally he had a son. But the son died. And the son died, his whole world collapsed. And from that state, Narada Muni brought him back to the normal state and gave the spiritual instruction, and therefore he became free from material bondage. But then he was cursed by the presiding deity of material nature, Mother Parvati Devi. He took it as a blessing, you can say, from Mother Parvati Devi, that he has been, with a smile he took it, and he has received the body of Dhritarashtra. So therefore, he knew that the thunderbolt was prepared under the instruction of Lord Vishnu, and it is going to kill him. And he wants to be killed because he knew that he is going to attain the highest destination. And that highest destination was returning back home, back to Godhead. And that is the magazine Srila Prabhupada has designed long, long back. So what's the name of the magazine?
You have to go back home, back to Godhead.
Back to Godhead. So we can see the vision of Srila Prabhupada. I think that was dating back to 1940s or 50s. That's the time when Srila Prabhupada brought out the magazine Back to Godhead. And here we find Dhritarashtra was eagerly waiting, when will I return back home and serve the lotus feet of my dear Lord? And then Indra is waiting, when will I get back my kingdom? I can rule my kingdom unbridled. So therefore we read it says that thus Indra at times was a disastrous failure. Therefore even though Indra stood with the thunderbolt to hurl against Dhritarashtra, he was doubtful, thinking that the thunderbolt might also fail. Dhritarashtra, however, being a Vaishnava, assured Indra that the thunderbolt would not fail, for Dhritarashtra knew that it had been prepared in accordance with the instructions of Lord Vishnu. So this is the confidence of a Vaishnava, that the Vaishnava knows that what is the Gambhira, the mind of the Lord, will be fulfilled. Nothing can stop it. So what is that line which says that if Lord wants to kill, no one can save him, and if Lord wants to save, no one can kill him. So here Lord wants to kill Dhritarashtra, so therefore no one can save Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra is eagerly waiting for that. Although Indra had doubts because he could not understand that Lord Vishnu's order never failed, Dhritarashtra understood Lord Vishnu's purpose, because Indra had mixed consciousness, whereas Dhritarashtra had pure consciousness. Dhritarashtra was eager to be killed by the thunderbolt manufactured according to Lord Vishnu's instruction, because he was sure that he would thus return home back to Godhead. And this is a lesson we need to learn, that many a time in our life we'll be passing through turbulences, deep turbulences that would shake us, that would rock us to the bottom of our consciousness. And at that time, we have our faith? Is it the money in the bank or the doctor or the family members or anyone else? Once we asked Jagatharani Mataji that we would like to shift to Vrindavan. This was, I think, 4 or 5 years back. We asked this question to Mataji. Mataji looked at me and she said, "Are you sure? Because you are not going to Vrindavan at your young age. You are planning to go to Vrindavan and spend the rest of your life in your old age. And Vrindavan is a place where there are hardly any medical facilities. Do you have faith in the Dham? Do you have faith in Śrīmati Radharani? Do you have faith in Krishna Balaram? And they are going to protect you in all the situations. And you are willing to leave your body there. If you don't have faith, don't go." So that made us really think, do I have faith? To the extent whether I get medical help or I don't get medical help. I am in the safe hands of the Lord, and therefore I will be taken care. We have many pastimes on Vrindavan. I think one of the pastimes where I met one devotee who said that he never leaves Vrindavan, even for a day. He has never left Vrindavan even for a day. Wherever he might go, but come evening, he is back in Vrindavan. He has moved to Vrindavan some 40 years back. Someone told him at that time, 40 years back, that you don't have to do anything. You will be taken care. And he was given Thakurji, and he said, just worship Thakurji and all your needs will be met. So he was narrating his life, and believe it or not, he has never worked in the last 40 years. Today, he has got a 3-story building. He never worked. He has got a 3-story building in Vrindavan, in the Parikrama Marg, very close to Parikrama Marg. He maintains his own family. He has got 2 cows. He has and he said, how did you get all this? So he went on telling his pastime, how he was given by some devotee from America. They came and then he showed them Vrindavan. He took them on a tour. They wanted him to take, so he was telling them the pastime. So therefore they said, you have done such a wonderful job, and they purchased a piece of land and gave it to him. And similarly, each one visiting Vrindavan, he did some little bit of help to them. And then someone built one room, the other devotee built the second room, the other built the third room, then the first floor. Then he started feeding. So he said that every week he feeds hundreds of devotees on the first floor of his building. He said, how do you get it? He said, I don't know. I don't work anywhere. But I still get grains, I get items, I prepare. What I do is only my wife cooks and then we feed Vaishnavas. So do we have that faith? Especially when we are passing through turbulences in our life. So if you want to kill me, since I am your enemy, take this opportunity, kill me, you will gain victory, and I shall go back to Godhead. Your deed will be equally beneficial for both of us. Do it immediately. Otherwise, we have that famous verse. What's that? Abrahma bhavana loka punar avartino arjuna mam upetitu kaunteya punar janmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are place of misery where repeated birth and death takes place. But one who returns back home, back to God, my abode, will not take birth again in this material world. So this is a confidence Prabhupada had, that once he returns back home, he will not come back. And who can achieve this platform? Who can get this consciousness? Someone who is exhausted with material energy. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur said that if someone has truly understood from the bottom of his consciousness that material world will not give him pleasure, he cannot derive any pleasure in this world, then he has made a quantum jump in his spiritual journey. He has made a huge jump in his spiritual journey. And that person will be fixed in his consciousness to return back home. So summarizing today's session, we find that a comparison is being drawn between a mixed devotee and a pure devotee. An ordinary person or a mixed one feels that maybe I am the doer, so therefore I am entitled for the result. But a pure devotee thinks that he is only an instrument. He needs to do his prescribed duty, but he functions as an instrument. The result is not his, but he has to do his duty. And Srila Prabhupada gave his example to the world, to us as followers, that the pastime of Dhritarashtra can be done by someone who has faith in Guru's order, who has faith in the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that every town and village is going to chant the holy name of God. And therefore, we can be simply an instrument in carrying out that order of Srila Prabhupada, and then take that as seriously in our life and do what little best is possible from our side to facilitate the chanting of the holy name in every town and village of this world. Yeah, with this we'll stop at any question, any comment. Yes, bro.
So you mentioned about the faith in that Dhritarashtra has, and that faith in Krishna and Guru also, and Prabhupada was exemplified. That faith comes at the stage of anartha and everything, onwards, where you have complete faith.
Beyond anartha.
Yeah. Before that, you won't have that.
We start with little faith, Athau Shraddha. The journey starts with Athau Shraddha.
Yeah.
So without that, one cannot take to the path of Krishna consciousness. But then what builds up that faith is the association. So here also in this pastime, you can see that the association of Dhritarashtra as a pure devotee had an impact on Indra, so therefore finally he used the thunderbolt. We can twist that pastime. Dhritarashtra as a pure devotee gave his association to Indra and lifted his consciousness, so therefore Indra could use the thunderbolt against Dhritarashtra to kill him. So the association gives you the required confidence, the faith, because bhakti needs a medium, and that medium is a devotee to manifest. So the escape velocity takes place not before sadhu sangha bhajan anartha nivritti, then nishta is the minimum platform at which the escape velocity. That's the word I think I've heard from Radheshwar Prabhu, who says that if you want to place the satellite in the orbit, then you need to fire it at a particular speed and only then we can escape from the gravitational pull. So similarly, if you are required to escape from the material energy, one should come to the escape velocity, which is the Nistha platform. So if someone is struggling with their desires, anatta, atta is which has value, anatta which has no value, and if I'm struggling with that has no value, so therefore I have a long way to go. And the way to overcome anatta nivritti is to chant. Chant in association of devotees. If we want to improve our chanting, observe a devotee who does good chanting. This is what once Tirakani Mataji has said in the retreat, that if you want to imbibe the quality of a particular devotee which is inspiring you, then be in the proximity of the devotee. You don't have to even interact with the devotee. Just be in the proximity of the devotee. That is so contagious that you will imbibe that quality. So if you want to improve your chanting, observe someone who inspires you in chanting. So when that person is chanting, be in his vicinity and do your japa. You will get that quality of chanting. That is an answer. Did that answer your question? Any other question or comment? You have not given me your name so far. The meaning. Yeah, any other question or comment? Yes, Mata.
Actually, Prabhu, like, you spoke about the doer, like that, the consciousness of the doer. So, like,
Consciousness of it?
like, so when we think that we are the doer.
Yeah.
Right? So that consciousness. So that, but like when we do this service, like how can we try not to be in that consciousness that we are the doers?
Pray before taking up any service. Pray to the Lord. Please use me as your instrument. I do what to the best of my ability, but I'm only your instrument. So it is a Vaishnava's attitude is that of a service. The more we live in that consciousness that I'm a servant, as we say that I'm a servant of the servant of the servant, if that consciousness can be ingrained, then it becomes easy for us to do the service as an instrument. But the moment I think that I'm the doer, then I look for the pratishta, praise. And I think Raghunath Goswami says in Mana Siksha, persons looking for such a praise are considered to take bath from the urine of a donkey. He uses such a very harsh word. And to remove the anattas, as Prabhu was asking the question, same in Manasiksha, Raghunath Goswami says that their anattas are like the highway robbers, thieves. And the highway robbers, how do you drive them? By taking the name of Mukunda. You shout to Govinda, Mukunda, then these robbers will disappear. Today for Manasiksha, Raghunath Goswami says that wherever our consciousness could be, ideally that our consciousness should be 24 hours in Krishna consciousness. But what we are, what I am, I may not be 24 hours Krishna conscious. So therefore, to persons like me, Pragnam Goswami says that every 30 minutes, every half an hour, wherever your consciousness could be, just bring it back to Krishna consciousness. Think of the form of the Lord that really attracts you. If you are attracted to Radha Vallabha's form, bring Radha Vallabha's form, personality into your consciousness, into your mind. And stay there in that consciousness as long as your mind allows it. As long as it allows it. It could be 5 seconds, it could be 10 seconds, it could be 30 seconds, it could be 1 minute. So that's a meditation, that's a samadhi. And once you come out of that spell, then return back to your normal, whatever you are doing. But then every 30 minutes, then you bring back the same same samadhi. And it says, you cultivate this as a habit. Then your absorption time increases over a period of time. And there's a greater possibility that we remain in Krishna consciousness. And that's the hope to cross the increase of faith. Yeah, any other question or comment? Yeah.
How do we increase that faith from the Lord?
How do we increase the faith in the Lord? You have such a wonderful father. Where did your father go? Yeah, father is rich. And it's association. If we say that it's a disease, someone who is having COVID, we do not go closer to that person because we get COVID. Someone is having flu or someone is having sneezes, cold, we don't go closer to the person because we catch that cold. So similarly, someone who has got that deep faith, you go closer to him, you get that faith. You are coming and sitting in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam class is because of your parents. If parents did not have that faith, you would be coming here. School holidays, you will be on the playground. If you ask somebody to watch TV for cricket, there will be millions who are watching cricket on TV. But if you ask somebody to come to Bhagavatam, we can count on fingers how many of them participate in Bhagavatam class. And you are one among those few, very few, who are sitting in Bhagavatam class, hearing. It's because of the faith parents are infusing you. So therefore, we must move in the association of devotees who have that faith, and that faith comes to us. Gandhara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna Dasa.